Barney Oldfield and Henry Ford around 1900 got around the track, 60 miles an hour. That was, wow, yeah, that was landing on the moon. Or my grandmother, who was born in, the 1880s, when she would say, oh, he was going like 60. I mean, to her, that was warp speed, going like 60. It was miraculous. It was cool. I mean, Americans love cars. A funny thing happened on the way to infinity. The Industrial Revolution was built on free energy. America's energy policy, by default, has been to keep gasoline as cheap as possible. Well, when you run out of free energy, then you've got problems. Well, we have problems. Now what are we going to do? Well, it's 40 years later, and we haven't done a damn thing. So what are we going to do? My grandfather said never dip into capital. Fossil fuels are finite.
I do have
fossil fuels are finite. They're capital. When they're gone, they're gone. What are we going to do after that? I do not subscribe to the notion of après-moi le déluge. When I'm dead, who cares? I have kids. They will have kids. It matters to me. We have an opportunity. There's still time.
My take on this is that, first of all, our movie is not about the problems per se. It's about the solutions.
Clearly, there are major problems ahead when it comes to energy, but the future is nevertheless brighter than you might think. One of the most encouraging trends we see today comes from solar power, which is growing at exponential rates here in the US and around the world. The bottom line is that we're going to need a lot more energy over the next 25 years than we're using now, probably about 50% more. Much of that will be solar power, but of course other renewables like hydro, wind, geothermal, and from all categories, including fossil fuels, we're going to see great improvements in efficiency. If the US simply continues to grow its solar capacity at the same rate we've seen over the last 7 years, we get to an astounding 50% of all our electricity coming from solar in just 10 years. Will this actually happen? No, because growth rates inevitably slow down as we scale up. But we could perhaps reach 20 to 25% in that time frame. But Germany is way ahead of us and leads the world in solar. In just a dozen years, Germany installed enough solar to provide power for over 4 million people. At times, Germany's solar fleet provides over 40% of all power consumed in the country, which is astounding. Solar has grown so much in recent years because prices have come down dramatically, partly because of government support, and partly because of very aggressive manufacturing capacity growth in China. Prices have fallen about 80% over the last 5 years alone. We are now, thanks in part to these programs, at a point where solar prices are competitive with fossil fuels. We are in the elbow of the exponential growth curve as a result of these price declines. It's a truly exciting time. I don't think it's government's job to predict how markets are going to be. They should be an honest referee. Sorry, I'm laughing. They should be an honest referee. They should set standards. They should make the goals clear. They should quit changing their minds every 5 minutes. It would be nice if they would just get out of the way, and I don't think they are going to get out of the way. So again, I think we should be a midwife for gravity.
On the feed-in tariff discussion, the mom and pop sell power to the grid idea, that certainly requires some government intervention to allow that to happen. But that is rulemaking. It's not throwing money at certain industries. It's not treating people unfairly. It's saying essentially, look, you have the right to sell power to the grid that you use to get power from. And it's a way of saying to the utility monopolies that you are going to be a monopoly anymore. We're tired of your monopoly power.
They'll figure it out. It's inevitable. It's gravity. Resistance is futile, as I'm going to say in our acceptance speech.
Good stuff.
The U.S. has recently regained its lead in wind power against Germany after losing it for a decade. This is a wind farm being built for Puget Sound Energy in eastern Washington. On one day in early 2013, wind power supplied more than 24% of PSE's power, enough for about 1.1 million customers. The U.S. is truly the Saudi Arabia of wind. Wind power has grown at an average pace of about 30% in the U.S. over the last decade, bringing us to the point where wind power now supplies about 4% of our total power. This isn't a lot, but it's growing fast. Wind power supplied 28% of all of Texas' electricity on one day in early 2012, and Texas leads the way on wind in the U.S. Equally important as changing how we produce energy is using energy more efficiently. The good news here is that we are becoming much more efficient in the U.S. and around the world. Globally, we use about half as much energy to produce $1 of GDP as we did 20 years ago. The future is pretty bright for renewables and a more efficient economy. The real tough nut to crack, though, is oil. How do we leave oil before it leaves us? The Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones, and it's very unlikely that the Oil Age will end because we ran out of oil. Rather, we'll develop alternatives to oil before we literally run out. Oil will very likely get very expensive before we leave it entirely. Why are gas prices so high? The short answer, because we're on a razor-thin line between too much global demand and too little supply of oil. U.S. oil production is indeed way up from its lows a decade ago, and this is really good for our economy, if not for our environment or global atmosphere. But the oil shale revolution, the shale gale, to use Danny Yergin's phrase, is not all it's cracked up to be. Decline rates are extremely high for shale oil wells, which means that more and more wells had to be drilled over time just to stay even, let alone go higher. This is the famous Red Queen effect, and it's a very real problem for the longevity of oil shale in the U.S. and other countries. The fact is, since the financial crisis of 2008, we've saved more oil than we've found through new drilling. And it seems like these savings aren't going to be temporary, because many people have permanently changed their lifestyles to accommodate far higher oil and gas prices.
We are at the beginning of an alternative transportation revolution. Though we are not yet on the exponential returns curve as we clearly are with solar and wind, we have new cars available now like the Chevy Volt and Nissan Leaf.
Not only are we driving on sunshine, but it's really fast and really fun car to drive.
Michael Chiakos works for the Santa Barbara-based Community Environmental Council, a nonprofit that was key to beginning the modern environmental movement and is still active today, spurring change on energy issues.
Every night, just plug it in like that, and much easier than going to a gas station. Got charging right here at your house. So basically you could do all your driving up till about 40 miles all electric, and many times my girlfriend and I, we share the car, we'll drive a couple weeks without using a drop of oil.
Of course, there's the way cool Tesla Model S.
I drove in a Tesla the other day. That was the future.
You gonna buy it?
Car. I'm not, it's not at my price point yet, so it's expensive for what I would spend, but I think it's amazing. So I look at it like plasma screens. Plasma screens, when you bought the first ones in 2000, they cost $5,000. Now you get them for $400.
The more important cars are probably the tiny Prius C, the Honda Fit, and the Ford Focus, which is the world's top-selling car, because these cars are actually affordable and cost-effective today. But the far bigger set of solutions revolves around conservation of oil through non-car modes of transportation. Buses, biking, walking, and carpooling are all highly effective ways to save oil in a hurry. The good news regarding higher oil prices is that we are in fact rational. As prices rise, we magically use less oil. But in many cases, the cure of higher prices is worse than the disease of oil dependence. The tricky balancing act is figuring out how to transition away from oil without bankrupting our economies in the process.
So, the question we need to answer is this. Are we really faced with a choice between a global catastrophe stemming from rising temperatures due to our burning fossil fuels, Or, on the other hand, what amounts to an enduring economic depression, a different type of catastrophe that means poverty, misery, and probably war for millions? The short answer is a resounding no. This film will explain where the next 250 quads of energy will come from, and without destroying the only planet we have.
What can a couple of fat and happy people from Santa Barbara teach the world? Well, that's a good question. We care because we're in a position to do something about it. The people of Santa Barbara, half the people in this town could put photovoltaics on their roof this year and buy electric cars this year and get level 2 chargers in their garage this year. Those things make a difference. So, what can Santa Barbara do? It can provide leadership. It can show that there is a way, there are things you can do. Fossil fuels are finite. And before we run out of them, we have an obligation, I think, and a duty to posterity to rig the infrastructure so we can live off of renewables. That's really the issue here.
This ain't your granddaddy's film on energy. We're also creating an extensive online and social engagement portal for people who want to get more involved to be the most effective. We're creating a website with local action planning tools, social media toolkits, and general information for everyone who wants to make a difference to do so in the most effective ways.
I mean, you're old and grizzled. You know, I'm young and handsome. We know a thing or two about energy. Or 3, you know, but not everything. But I'm happy to say right here, right now, that we will debate anyone, anywhere, anytime on these issues. I hate to say this, it has a bad history, but bring it on.